Hey strangers, let's talk about death. Death is something that has or will touch all of our lives. That's not a threat. As anything that lives will eventually cease doing so. Just ask my plants. Please don't call Plant Protective Services. It was an accident, I swear. By adulthood, most of us have experiences with death, loss, and thereby grief. So for those of you who have, here's a question. What would you give to have 90 seconds with a lost loved one? What things left unsaid would you finally be able to speak? What questions left unasked would you finally have answered? How much money is it worth? Would you sacrifice your home, your career, your freedom? What about the loved ones who are still with you? Hi. My name is Kayla, and this is Clover. My channel explores all things horror. Today, I'm going to give my review of the 2023 A24 horror movie, Talk to Me. Trigger warning for this movie, it has to deal a lot with a person who has taken their own life. It's a heavy theme throughout the movie, so if that is something that is upsetting or triggering to you, skip this one. So Talk to Me opens in the middle of a story and gives us some horror right off the bat. It takes place at a party. There's some violence. There's a little bit of blood. There's a little bit of gore. And it leaves us feeling this sense of confusion and urgency all at the same time that really sets the tone for the movie. Our main character, 17-year-old Mia, attends the celebration of life for the second anniversary of her mother, Raya's death, which was sudden and unexpected. We can see that Mia is still very much grieving and that the death has a negative impact on her relationship with her father, Max. Perhaps she even blames him. Instead, Mia seems to spend most of her time as the de facto adopted child in her best friend Jade's family. Jade's brother Riley, Jade's mother Sue treat her like another member of the family. It becomes very obvious from this alone that Mia has trouble finding a place where she feels like she belongs. So here and there, we catch scenes of videos that are posted on social media of supposed possessions that Mia and Jade kind of brush off as, someone play acting for clout. They're like me, everything that I see online, all of those ghost TikTok videos, I'm like, that's not real, guys. I'm a huge skeptic, and they seem to be approaching that in the same way. So the people posting these videos are Jade's kind of friend Haley and her friend Joss. So eventually Jade brings Mia to a party hosted by Haley and Joss because Jade is dating Daniel. Mia's she dated Daniel when they were in middle school for 3 minutes and they held hands once. And it's this really cute little backstory that we get. But Jade is kind of infatuated with Daniel, so she wants to spend all his time with him. So she drags Mia to this party, and they end up also dragging Jade's little brother Riley to the party because he's like, well, if you don't bring me, I'm going to tell on you. Even though his mom, Sue, already knows that they're sneaking out of the house. At the party, Mia is greeted with indifference and disdain by all of the other guests who treat her like she has the plague for some reason that's never really explained. We don't see any bullying or stuff like that. But it's kind of implied that because she's still coping with her grief from the loss of her mother, that this has left her ostracized. I think at some point Haley says she's too needy, she's whiny or something like that. God forbid someone grieve the death of their mother, a couple years on. The real party starts when this severed hand is brought out. And we never really get the origin of the severed hand, but you've seen it in the previews for the movie. It's just a hand that looks literally almost exactly like this, but it's cut off right here. It's white and it's got words written all over it. So the rules are that you have to hold the hand and say, "Talk to me," which allows a spirit to possess your body and speak through you like some sort of weird messed up Ouija board. You can only hold on to the hand and be possessed for 90 seconds. Any possession beyond that point may lead to the spirit permanently setting up shop in your body. So Mia, who is obviously seeking belonging among her peers who just minutes ago rejected her, is the first to volunteer. I'll do it. Everyone else is like, I'm good. That would be me. I would be like, you know what? Actually, I have a dentist appointment. I gotta go. There are a few jump scares here. Well, I should say they start here, but they fit in really well with the plot and they work really well. I'm not really a big fan of jump scares because I think they're really like cheap and easy, but they're necessary here in my opinion. So a spirit of a bloated corpse is the best way that I can describe it. It's very grotesque. Possesses Mia and delivers this cryptic message to all of the partygoers with this very menacing focus on Riley, who becomes so frightened he starts to cry. And honestly, I would too. Like, the things that Mia says, I think will go down in horror movie history, kind of like Here's Johnny. Haley and Joss manage to sever, no pun intended, the connection, but they do go a little bit over 90 seconds. So after this point, Mia describes this as like this really great experience, despite the fact that she's like scared out of her mind. And she's hooked in a way that reminds me a little bit of the plot of Flatliners, which is about medical students that are seeking to see what exists on the other side of death, and they kind of become addicted to that experience. We get this brief scene of bonding between Mia and Riley when after this party, he's too afraid to go sleep on his own. And Jade is like, get out of my room. You're too old for this. So Mia's like, come on, sleep on the pull-out couch with me, because apparently she's got like a permanent bed there. And they give these like big sister, little brother vibes. And she's kind of like, I'm always here for you. I'll always protect you. And he's like, you're a part of our family. You're my, you know. So Jade's boyfriend, Daniel, asks Jade if she can get Haley to come to Jade's house. This is how it feels when like teenagers talk to me about gossip. I hope you're keeping a chart. So he wants Haley to come over Jade's house with the hand so that he can try it out. Because he was at the party, he was a witness to it, but he was like, I want to see what this is like. So Haley agrees and the group has fun in this little like montage of multiple possessions of varying degrees of intensity. You know, sometimes they're crying, sometimes they're screaming, sometimes, one of them is like practically falling out of the chair. At a certain point, Riley pipes up and he says, I want to try. Give me a shot. Now, Riley is like, so Mia and Jade are 17. Riley is probably like 13, 14 years old. He's a little bit younger. And this is immediately shot down by Jade. Absolutely not. She's like, it's too dangerous. And all of the other people at the party kind of egg her on. There's peer pressure and she gets angry and storms out of the room. So Mia, again, acting like this de facto big sister to Riley, reluctantly agrees to let him try, but for a reduced amount of time. I think she says like 60 seconds only. However, during this process, he seemingly becomes possessed by the spirit of Rhea, Mia's mother, and Mia has difficulty letting this brief connection go. She's like, I want to hear what my mom has to say. Of course. As I mentioned in the beginning, many of us would probably do the same thing if we were given the opportunity to speak with a lost loved one again. So this is where the movie truly picks up and starts to examine how far that Mia is willing to go to reconnect with her mother and discover what truly happened to cause her death. So spoilers after this point. If you don't want this movie spoiled for you, close this, go watch it, and come back after you're done. So aside from the scares that I think worked really well and literally had me like clasping my hands over my mouth, which I never do, I'm really desensitized by horror movies, as I'm sure many of you are as well. I like that this movie really fleshed out and explored the grief process. How are my bangs looking? So grief is already so complicated, and it becomes even more compounded when we lose a loved one suddenly and unexpectedly. So grief, being a long and often confusing process, is normal. So the fact that Mia is still grappling with this a couple years on is a totally normal experience. But when you add in someone unaliving themselves, homicide, disappearing or going MIA in war or conflict, a degenerative disease like dementia or Alzheimer's, you head in the direction of a prolonged grief disorder where an individual has a difficult time gaining any sort of closure or acceptance. Because as many of you may know, there's the concept of the 5 stages of grief, right? And the last one, so they can occur in any sort of order, but the last one is always going to be acceptance. And that doesn't mean that we're okay with the fact that our loved one passed away, but it does mean that we've accepted that they're no longer in our lives, and we've kind of adjusted our lives to that loss. Mia is an unreliable narrator, which is a storytelling element that I absolutely love. We are only tuned into her perception of reality, with no hints or clues as to whether or not what she's seeing is actually real. The delusions that she experiences are flavored by her grief. Rhea's ghost implies that she's dead because of something that her father Max did. There are spirits that tell her Riley, recovering in the hospital from his experience with the hand, is being held in the pits of hell and being like tortured for all eternity without chance of escape, in a scene that is very reminiscent of the hell scene in Jacob's Ladder, which is probably one of my favorite movie scares of all time. These experiences align perfectly with the questions that I find often accompany the death of a loved one by their own hand. The thoughts that we tend to ruminate on when we lose someone we love this way, like, I can't believe they would do this. How could I not notice that they were struggling? Did I do enough? Where are they now? Are they at peace? In some religions, and I'm not saying this because I agree with it, I do not, but in some religions, taking your own life is considered something that could land you in the bad place. These thoughts seem to persist for longer periods of time when a loved one dies, than when a loved one dies of a long-term expected illness or of old age, complications due to old age. Furthermore, Mia becomes isolated by her grief, right? As we see in the beginning, her peers kind of reject her. Oh my God, she's so needy. She's so annoying. She's so sad all the time. She avoids her father, who is a trauma reminder, right? So again, totally normal. Not really great, but normal to avoid a reminder of trauma. And eventually losing standing with the only people she considers her family because of what happens to Riley. It's the perfect recipe for the dark path that she heads down in this film. A24 takes risks with movies that have heart. Their horror movies are always an instant watch for me. Even the slightly strange ones like Lamb. I don't know if any of you saw that. It's a little weird. But they leave a lot to think about when the credits roll. And those are the kind of horror movies or books or comics or whatever that I really enjoy, because not only do I like scary stuff, but I like scary stuff that makes me think and explores these complex topics. I mean, horror is the perfect genre to further examine things that are horrifying, like death. I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about the origin of the hand, but I realized it's not really necessary to the movie, and I think it would have been a little bit convoluted if they did that. Would have veered off focus from the main point of the movie, which was Mia's grief. And I can kind of imagine it being the plot line of, say, like an early 2000s horror movie, when there was always like this detective procedural undertone to every horror movie. Like if you think back to the American remake of The Ring, where she's like Googling all of this stuff and trying to figure out what the origins are. So Talk to Me is now available for purchase across a lot of popular streaming platforms, YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV, I believe, some other ones. Definitely check it out. Highly recommend. I think this is one of the best movies I've seen in quite a while. I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think if you do check it out. I also wanted to do a little unboxing here, because for spooky season, I bought myself a scratch off horror movie poster. I keep wanting to say scratch and sniff. That would be really interesting. So let's see. So here it is, strangers, my scratch and sniff horror movie poster. So you can see the titles and everything like that. So you scratch it off after you're done watching the movie. And it's got a little picture there. So what are some that we've got on here? Jacob's Ladder. Speak of the Literal Devil. 28 Days Later. Hereditary. Seven. What's one of my favorites? Creepshow. It Follows. The Fly. Raw. The Descent. The Wailing. Oh, Cabin in the Woods, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I've seen many of these, if not most of these, but there are a bunch on here that I also haven't seen, so I'm really excited to check them out and review them for you. I also need your help. So I was looking for a similar poster for horror books, and it does not exist, but I did find out that there is a way to DIY your own scratch and sniff book poster. So I started making one. I am going to post a little picture or clip of what I have so far and give me some more of your recommendations. Some of the books I put on there, I grabbed from like top 10 lists or something like that, and I'm not really sure about. So, let me know what you think I should add to that, because I think it would be a lot of fun to explore more horror movies and books this way. But that's it for now. I think what's coming for Spooktober here, who calls it that? Does anybody call it that? I might do some rereading of some old creepypastas. I think I might do some live reactions to reading some creepypastas from like the lowest tier of the iceberg, because I started reading a few of them and they're really bad. So I think it would be a lot of fun to read them with you. But let me know what you're doing for October. And I will see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thank you. Subscribe, like, do the thing. Bye.